are not included. And remember, this is just, I've been calling it a soft opening for our 60th years. But, you know, there's some events that marked us in Clemson from the very beginning as a different group. We began, I think, as a more humanist-oriented fellowship. Folks that were drawn to us tended to be liberal, who wanted a religious community that did not fit into the traditional Baptist, Methodist, Catholic churches. Our folks were those who wanted a different kind of religious tradition. There are some early events that I think from the very beginning of our 60th year we need to highlight because they articulate the values that were lived out in this community that were sometimes not culturally acceptable. And there are a couple of events that set us apart in those early years. One became known as the Black Tea. Founding member Myra Breger moved to Clemson from the Midwest. While she knew the etiquette of her times, she also had beliefs that were different from many people in the Clemson community. This was the 1950s. Ladies gave formal teas. They polished their silver. Hats and white gloves were included. Myra invited her friends to the tea. She invited all of her friends, both African American and Caucasian. What a shock to some of the guests who had never, ever envisioned an integrated ladies' tea. She soon became known all over town as that Breger woman. After that event, I understand from John that if, as happened all the time then and very often happens now, if you met someone new, they would say, "Where are you from and what church do you go to?" And if someone said, "I go to the Unitarian Church," they would say, "Oh, that's where that Breger woman goes." The Sarles remember that. Another shock to the entire Clemson community, as I understand it, was when the Keneally children, the Holt children, and the Sarles children took sex ed. Now, what year was that? Do y'all remember what year that was? About 1975. Now, amazing. I mean, our UU sex ed curriculum is controversial today, so I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall. So that was another very radical thing that happened. And of course, I've also heard several times about the event in which Strom Thurmond turned the microphone off on Bernice Holt when she was trying to speak. So this was an interesting decade. Did I get that right? Huh? Oh, okay. Well, hey, we'll have more opportunities. So these events speak to the commitment of our members to live their values without regard of what others might say. Courage and perseverance. And slowly, our fellowship community grew stronger, moving from a meeting room at the university, right? Was that the first one? Then to the Y. And gosh, Paul and Jorge, we should have played YMCA today. To buying the land, building the old part of the building, and then eventually building this newer part of the building. Commitment and dedication. One of the things I learned this week was one of the reasons that Christmas Eve candlelight services are so special in this community was that was it this part of the building or the other part of the building? When the social room was sort of finished, but no electricity, no plumbing, no water, no nothing. It was Christmas Eve. We needed to have a Christmas Eve service. So we had, evidently the contractor against the rules, let us come in, and we literally had a candlelight Christmas Eve service because there was no electricity. It spoke to many seasons to come and lots of wonderful possibilities. On the home front, people began to join our founding members. John Keneally is the member who's been here the longest. The Holtz and the Sarles have been here for a long time. Our teens today, as I said, are going to start a timeline. So it will be great for us to continue to add, like when each of you became part of the fellowship. For many years, the members did everything. Cecil, who is now our current president, was the president way back. He said he remembers that the president had to unlock the doors every Sunday morning, make the coffee, help fix the building. It was a smaller community, so everybody had to pitch in and do everything. Caring for our members and our environment has always been a labor of love. Charmaine Keneally was one of the folks who helped care not only for our members, but also for our aesthetics. She had a plant hospital at her home where she would doctor plants when they weren't properly taken care of or watered on time by other folks. When we moved into this space, she had a vision of creating an environment in which the outside environment and the inside environment seemed to flow from one to the other. So she nurtured the plants we had and managed to find special plants, such as a sago palm that she found when John was at a conference in Corpus Christi, Texas. John returned to their hotel room to find a tree there, and Charmaine determined to get it back to the fellowship as carry-on luggage. This was years ago when, such items could get on planes. But, it was pretty big, and no, it couldn't go as carry-on luggage. So evidently they found lots of boxes and tape and tore things up and created this box around the tree. And it came as checked luggage. That was before the days when you had to pay for every piece of luggage. Charmaine's care of plants continues through her bequest that we honor our environment both within this building and outside. After years of volunteers doing everything, we grew to the point where we needed Bernice as an ordained lay minister. Then Cynthia Prescott was called as an extension minister in 1997 and went on to be the settled minister. Alex Holt was the interim from 2010 to 2012, and I arrived about 18 months ago. Other staffing positions developed over the years, with members serving as religious education directors, both paid and unpaid. Our office staff took on some of the burgeoning administrative tasks. And we are very honored because our original choir director, Elaine, is still with us. You were music director. Okay, good. See, huh? Yeah, so we need to get all this history down because I'm just skimming over the top. So thank you for correcting me, but we still want to claim you. Okay. There have been so many milestones. And yet, one of the realities of building a religious community is that we function as a family system. We Unitarian Universalists are known to have many and varied opinions. That is the one truth of what I'm saying today. There are times when peace and light reign supreme, and there have been times when we have put the fun in dysfunctional. We are not different from any other religious community. Part of growing and understanding and compassion is not that there is conflict. It is how we learn to address and deal with conflict. Perhaps some of the most intense conflict within the fellowship was the tension around whether we would remain lay-led or call a minister. Having Bernice Holt as our lay minister was a true gift to the congregation, but many people felt like that we had grown enough, we'd grown out of that family-sized congregation, and it was time to call a minister, or officially ordained minister within the UUA. And we got an extension minister, and Cynthia Prescott had a long ministry here, which really speaks a lot to this congregation because very often lay-led congregations do not have a long first ministry because it's hard to shift and feel comfortable from one stage to the other. So Cynthia was called, and, some people still really wanted it to be a lay-led congregation. Some people were upset and left with the intention of beginning another smaller community. But eventually the tensions calmed and some of those folks returned. Over the years, there have been other hurtful tensions about how open we really are to theological diversity and differences in religious and political beliefs. At times, some of us have been disrespectful to each other's beliefs. There have been difficult times when we didn't know how to handle the tensions. There have been painful disagreements. At each point of disagreement, there has been a period when some people separated from the community, either emotionally or literally. Those have been painful, hard times. But they have also been the times of greatest growth and understanding. These times have been followed by periods of reflection when individuals and the community realize that we need not think alike to love alike. Through our deeper explorations of how to be truly a loving, caring community, members of UUFC have learned how to better care for one another, how to speak the truth in love, how to disagree with compassion toward one another. Tensions and conflict are normal in every community. What is essential is how we learn from the tension and the conflict. Through each disagreement, each human movement from seeing individuality as supreme to community as the foundation for peace and justice, this congregation has deepened in its understanding of how to be together. This has been a great gift and bodes well for our future. And let me promise you, there will continue to be tensions. That's a reality. What we do about those tensions will speak to our health and vitality. So what do we learn from each other? How can we be respectful of our differences? Do we feel our cause or perspective is the only one that matters? Do we truly listen to each other? Are we willing to be transformed by one another? So I thought my thoughts about this subject and where this congregation has come in the last few years might be augmented by a few words from our interim minister. So I contacted Alex Holt to say, okay, what would you like to say to the members of UUFC? And he wrote, I generally don't believe in miracles, but marvels definitely can happen. How do I know this? How about UUFC in 2010 to 2012? The marvels I think of include such things as the memorial garden that was so tenderly constructed and blessed, the Tuesday evening meditation group that sprang into existence and has blossomed in the last 2 years. Another marvel was the graceful way the congregation looked squarely in the mirror and saw not a face of bitterness or anguish, but learning how to smile and laugh again. I personally marveled at the kindness of so many and their willingness to try new ideas like expanding covenant groups or changing the structure of Sunday services. And of course, how could I not consider finally getting Wi-Fi in the main building? Alex is consistent. That was a big project and another story. Getting Wi-Fi in the main building, a marvel all of its own for those who remember that long project. The young, the older, the elders, the children, and all in between were people of faith and grace and determination. What a blessing you brought for this visitor to the South. Alex Holt. One of the things that I thought was interesting about our inconvenience this week with the burst pipe was that it was a reminder of our early years. Everyone had to step up and get all the work done together. And after the cleanup was done, I saw Carol and she said, well, I would have come to help. And lots of other people would have come to help. But we had all the people we could probably fit in at the time. Many things have changed over the years, but just like our earliest days, the spirit of this fellowship continues to be one of deep commitment and authentic acts of care toward one another, and a dedication to make sure we were here to stay. Everyone worked together. As our congregation grows into its next 60 years, the tasks might evolve. We might put energy, as we are this year, into building a legacy fund and endowment, to caring for our aging building, to finding new ways to take our message into the world, to welcoming babies into the world and loving people out of this life. But our love and commitment will remain, because love is the spirit of this church, and together we celebrate all that is our life. I invite us to rise in body or spirit to share together our closing hymn, number 128.